The way everything unfolded last time still hangs in the air, almost like a conversation that ended mid sentence. People are still replaying the moment Matt brushed off Jasmine's question with that distracted half smile he uses whenever he wants to dodge something. At first, it looked harmless, just another tiny spark in their usual friction. But the more the scene sat with viewers, the more everyone agreed that something about it felt off. It was the kind of moment you only understand in hindsight, when you realize the real story wasn't in what he said, but in what he didn't say. That's why the new episode picks up with this lingering tension, the kind that follows two people even when they're pretending everything is fine. Jasmine walked into today already carrying the weight of last night's confusion. She tried to laugh, tried to play it cool, but there was a hesitation in the way she answered him, a soft pause that didn't exist before. Anyone who has followed these two knows their dynamic is loud, messy, emotional, but always honest. That honesty is the one thing Jasmine clings to, almost like a lifeline whenever things get shaky. So when honesty starts to slip, even in small ways, she notices. She always notices. Matt, on the other hand, woke up acting like nothing had happened. He pushed ahead with plans, talking fast, moving fast, the way people do when they hope momentum will keep questions from catching up. At first, it almost worked. He kept things light, cracked a few jokes, tried to reset the mood, and for a moment it felt like they were both trying to pretend yesterday was just a misunderstanding that didn't need to be unpacked. But pretending only works when both people agree to it, and Jasmine wasn't fully on board. Throughout the morning, the small things started adding up. He checked his phone a little too often. He cut off conversations before they could drift into serious territory. He changed the subject whenever Jasmine's eyes lingered on him just a second too long. It wasn't dramatic or explosive, just subtle shifts in behavior that gave the impression he was running from something. The kind of avoidance you can sense even if you can't prove it. Jasmine tried to read him the way she always does, watching the rhythm of his responses, the tone he used, the little changes in his body language that never used to be there. She kept making these quiet mental notes. Not accusations yet, just observations. The last episode taught her not to jump too fast, not to let emotions outrun facts, but she wasn't about to ignore her instincts either. She has learned the hard way that when something feels wrong, it usually is. As the day moved forward, the vibe between them shifted from uneasy to strained. Conversations started sounding rehearsed, like Matt was choosing each word carefully instead of speaking freely. He acted helpful, overly attentive at moments, which only made things feel more suspicious. It's that strange emotional dance couples get into when one person knows something is off, but the other keeps pretending everything is normal. The tension isn't loud, but it's constant, like a low hum you can't shut off. By afternoon, Jasmine's patience was fading. She kept replaying that moment from last night, wondering why his answer bothered her so much. She couldn't shake it. No matter how many times she told herself she was overthinking. Matt stepped away for a bit, claiming he had to handle something, and this is where everything shifted. It wasn't the fact that he left. It was how quickly he grabbed his phone when she walked toward him. It was the way he tilted the screen away. It was how he said he'd explain later, even though no one had asked for an explanation. When he returned, he acted relaxed again, but Jasmine wasn't looking at his face anymore. She was looking at his pocket. And something about what she saw there didn't match the story he had just given her. The change didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, starting with the way Matt carried himself when he walked back into the room. He smiled, but it wasn't the easy smile people were used to seeing. It looked placed, almost practiced, like someone arranging furniture so everything looks normal from a distance. Jasmine picked up on that immediately. Her eyes followed him as he moved around, and even though she didn't say a word, the silence around her felt heavier than any question she could have asked. Viewers online noticed it too. People paused the moment, rewound it, and pointed out how her expression shifted from confusion to quiet calculation. Something happened in that small window of time when he stepped away, and she knew it. Matt kept talking about nothing in particular, filling the air with random comments as if noise could drown out suspicion. He mentioned what they should eat later, made a joke about the weather, and asked if she wanted to watch something. But the rhythm was off. The tone was too bright. The way he spoke seemed like he was trying to outrun a conversation he didn't want to have. Jasmine nodded along, but her eyes stayed alert, tracking every small detail he probably didn't even know he was giving away. When he sat down, his phone lit up again. Another notification. This time he didn't reach for it fast enough, and for a split second the screen was visible. It wasn't the message itself that caught Jasmine's attention. It was the name attached to it, not a family member, not a friend she knew, not someone he ever mentioned before, just a name sitting there, glowing on the screen for a single heartbeat before he swiped it away and locked the phone. His shoulders tensed and he exhaled too slowly, as if trying not to show panic. That moment spread across social media within minutes of the episode airing, with viewers freezing the frame and trying to guess who the message might have been from. Jasmine didn't ask anything right away. She just continued observing, letting him talk, letting him bury himself in casual topics that didn't matter. She knew pushing too fast would only make him defensive. What she wanted was a clear view of the cracks forming in his story. The best way to see them was to stay silent, because silence makes people reveal things without realizing it. And that's exactly what happened. Matt tried to keep the mood upbeat, but whenever the conversation drifted anywhere near the subject of trust or communication, he veered off sharply. He became vague when she asked what he had been doing earlier. He offered explanations that overlapped, contradicted, or didn't fully make sense. The more he talked, the more tangled his answers became. Watching it play out felt like watching someone frantically patch holes in a boat that was already sinking. Viewers online pointed out those mismatched responses, noting how he added unnecessary details, a classic sign someone is trying to appear transparent without actually being honest. The real shift happened when Jasmine finally asked to see his phone. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't dramatic. She said it softly, almost calmly, like someone who already knew the answer and just wanted to confirm it. Matt froze. Not for long, but long enough for the moment to feel stretched and uncomfortable. He laughed it off, said she was being paranoid, claimed she didn't trust him, and tried to redirect the blame. But Jasmine didn't bite. She didn't raise her voice or fight back. She just repeated the request with the same calm expression, and that calmness seemed to rattle him more than anger ever could. He handed her the phone, but something about the way he hesitated, the way he unlocked it while angling the screen away from her line of sight, sent another wave of unease through the room. When she finally held it, everything felt tense. She scrolled with slow, steady movements, and each swipe deepened the silence between them. Viewers could practically feel the tension through the screen. People online joked that they were holding their breath along with her. At first, nothing looked strange. His messages were normal, his apps were normal, and his notifications were cleared. Too cleared, almost spotless. That was the first red flag. Everyone's phone has some clutter, unless they're hiding something or they've just cleaned everything. And no one just cleans everything moments before handing their phone over unless they're covering their tracks. Then came the confusion around the screenshots. Jasmine found a newly created folder with a handful of saved images, most of them random, some of them duplicates. But one stood out. It wasn't explicit or flirtatious. It wasn't even dramatic on its own. It was a single cropped screenshot of a conversation with no context, showing only a reply from Matt and the edge of a message bubble from the other person. Whoever he had responded to wasn't visible. The timestamp looked recent. Too recent. Jasmine stared at the screen for a moment, trying to break down the logic of why someone would save a cropped reply with no context. It didn't make sense. And things that don't make sense never come without a reason. Matt tried to explain, but the explanation was messy. He said he saved it accidentally. He said he meant to save something else. He said he didn't actually remember saving anything at all. Each excuse contradicted the last. The more he talked, the more Jasmine's expression hardened into something colder. Not angry, not hurt, just deeply disappointed. That disappointment hit viewers harder than any shouting match ever could. Social media filled with comments about how her silence was louder than any argument. The distance between them wasn't physical at first. It was emotional. Jasmine pulled back in the way she looked at him, the way her voice softened, the way she asked fewer questions and observed more. Matt felt that withdrawal and started trying harder, talking more, explaining more, offering reassurances that sounded rehearsed and outdated. He tried to joke his way back into comfort, but each attempt landed flat. The entire scene had a strange tone, like watching two people slowly drift apart without either of them willing to admit what was happening. Camera moments became sharper. The editors highlighted every small facial shift, every glance at the phone, every half finished sentence. The tension wasn't explosive, but the quiet pressure kept building. Jasmine's instincts were working overtime, and viewers followed every detail with her. The silence between questions stretched longer, and in those stretches, her thoughts seemed to grow louder. Finally, she asked him why the name that appeared earlier wasn't in his messages anymore. She didn't shout it. She didn't accuse him. She asked it plainly, as if the truth had already been revealed and she was simply giving him a chance to say it out loud. Matt stumbled. First, he said she must have read it wrong. Then he said it was an old message that he deleted because it meant nothing. Then he said the notification wasn't actually a message, but just some app glitching. His explanations shifted so quickly that even he couldn't keep up with them. The distance between them turned into something solid. Viewers could feel the moment he realized he had lost control of the narrative. Jasmine wasn't angry. She wasn't emotional. She was focused, calm, unmoving, and that calmness made the tension unbearable. Things escalated when Jasmine opened his recently deleted folder. That was when Matt finally reacted. Not loudly, not aggressively. But his face changed in a way he couldn't hide. His voice tightened. He said she was going too far, invading his privacy, making a big deal out of nothing. But viewers saw the truth in his expression before she did. Something was in that folder, something he didn't want her to see. She tapped the screen. The folder opened. Her eyes scanned the contents, and whatever she saw there made her go completely still. Everything around them seemed to stop. Matt swallowed hard. Jasmine didn't speak. She didn't blink. She didn't even breathe for a moment. The quiet became unbearable. What she found wasn't explained yet. The episode pulled away just as her eyes narrowed, focusing on a detail that didn't belong, something that proved Matt's story couldn't be true, something that set up the confrontation they both knew was coming, even if neither of them was ready to face it. The moment Jasmine stopped scrolling felt like the entire room froze with her. She held the phone in her hand, not tight, not shaking, just steady in a way that made everything feel more serious. Her expression didn't show anger. It didn't show fear. It showed recognition. The kind that comes when scattered pieces finally form a whole picture. Whatever she saw in that recently deleted folder wasn't loud or obvious, but it connected to something she already suspected. The air between them changed instantly. Even Matt felt it. His face shifted, his shoulders tensed, and he only had to glance at her eyes to know she wasn't confused anymore. She understood something he had been trying to hide. He tried to speak before she did, because speaking first meant controlling the narrative. He rushed into an explanation about deleting old conversations to clear space on his phone. He said she was taking everything out of context. He insisted the screenshots meant nothing and were only saved by mistake. But the more he explained, the more obvious it became that he was reacting to her silence rather than her questions. He wasn't defending himself because she accused him of anything. He was defending himself because he could tell she already knew something wasn't right. Fans online had wildly different responses to this moment. Some argued Jasmine was overreacting, saying she jumped to conclusions without solid proof. They pointed out that lots of people delete things from their phones without it meaning anything suspicious, but a larger group saw it differently. They said the issue wasn't the screenshots. It was the way Matt responded to every single moment leading up to this one. It was the nervous laughter, the shifting excuses, the sudden privacy concerns, the attempted deflection, and the way he completely shut down when she opened the deleted folder. Viewers replayed the scene and analyzed his expression frame by frame, trying to understand whether it came from guilt or panic or simply embarrassment. Some fans sided with Matt, saying anyone would feel uncomfortable being put on the spot like that. They argued that Jasmine's quiet intensity could make anyone defensive, even an innocent person. They said her silence might have cornered him emotionally, pushing him into frantic explanations that made him look more suspicious than he actually was. They highlighted moments where she paused for too long or stared at him without saying anything, moments they believed created pressure rather than clarity. But others pointed out something different. They said Jasmine wasn't accusing, she wasn't confronting, she was observing. They believed her silence wasn't aggressive, it was controlled. They saw her calmness as a sign of maturity rather than manipulation. They noted how she didn't jump to conclusions, didn't raise her voice, didn't demand anything. She simply looked at the evidence, processed it at her own pace, and waited for the truth to show itself. And for many viewers, that approach made Matt's behavior stand out even more. The truth began slipping through the cracks as Matt kept talking. His voice changed. His explanations became shorter. He went from defending himself to trying to justify himself. He started using phrases like, "You know how things look even when nothing's happening," and "I didn't want you to get the wrong idea, and it wasn't a conversation that mattered." But each phrase made Jasmine's expression shift slightly, as if she was fitting those words into the context of what she already saw on his phone. Eventually, she asked him the direct question everyone knew was coming. Why was there a cropped screenshot from a conversation with someone he claimed he no longer talked to? It wasn't accusatory. It wasn't emotional. She asked it slowly, giving him room to answer truthfully. But he hesitated. Not a long hesitation, just long enough to reveal everything she needed to know. He said it was an old screenshot he forgot to delete. Then he changed the story and said he saved it accidentally. Then he said he didn't remember saving it at all. And with every shift in his explanation, Jasmine's trust slipped further away. Online, viewers took sides again. Some argued that cropped screenshots can happen by mistake and don't automatically mean anything secretive. Others said the more important detail wasn't the screenshot, it was the timing. It was saved recently. Too recently. And Jasmine noticed that immediately. The conversation started to peel back the layers of everything they had been avoiding. Jasmine asked what he was doing earlier when he stepped away. She asked who the notification came from. She asked why that name wasn't visible anywhere in his messages now. Each question was simple. Each one left Matt scrambling. He didn't have a clear answer for any of them. He jumped between explanations, trying to fill in gaps that kept widening the longer he spoke. Viewers said it felt like watching someone trying to put out a fire that had already spread beyond control. Some even said the only reason the moment didn't explode into a fight was because Jasmine refused to engage in chaos. Her restraint kept the situation from spiraling, but her restraint also forced the truth to surface without emotional noise masking it. As the tension built, the silence between questions grew heavier. You could almost feel Jasmine replaying every strange detail from earlier. The way he angled the phone away, the sudden shift in his behavior, the missing messages, the nervous energy that followed every notification. She was connecting everything piece by piece, and Matt could see the realization forming in her expression. He tried one last time to regain control of the situation. He told her she was misinterpreting everything. He insisted there was nothing going on. He asked why she didn't trust him, but his voice wasn't confident anymore. It cracked at the edges. It had the tone of someone pleading rather than explaining. Jasmine finally looked up from the phone and met his eyes. The room felt still again, but the stillness was different this time. It wasn't confusion or hesitation, it was clarity. She didn't need him to confirm anything at this point. She already knew. She wasn't searching for explanations anymore. She was deciding what to do with the truth. Fans online described this as the most powerful moment of the episode. Not because she confronted him with anger, but because she didn't have to. Her expression said everything. The realization, the acceptance, the disappointment, it all settled in quietly without theatrics. That quiet truth hit harder than any loud argument could. Matt kept waiting for her to say something, to accuse him, to yell, to cry, to demand answers he could try to spin. But she didn't do any of that. Instead, she held the phone one last time, stared at the screen, and then set it down gently on the table between them. The gesture was small, but it was decisive. It signaled something had shifted inside her. She stood up slowly. Not abruptly, not dramatically. She stood like someone who finally understood a situation they had been trying not to see clearly. Her mind wasn't stuck in confusion anymore. She wasn't frozen in disbelief. She was moving with purpose. And in that quiet, calm movement, the entire tone of the room changed. Because Jasmine wasn't standing up to argue, she was standing up to move forward. Trust doesn't usually break in a dramatic burst. It slips, piece by piece, through moments that seem harmless until they stack together and form a truth you can't ignore anymore. Watching Jasmine reach that point reminded everyone how fragile connection becomes when doubt is allowed to grow unchecked. What made this episode hit so hard wasn't just the possibility of Matt hiding something, it was the slow realization that the bond they relied on wasn't as steady as it looked from the outside. Viewers felt the weight of every pause, every half answer, every shift in tone because they've lived versions of that same moment in their own relationships. It's the kind of tension that pulls at something personal, something universal. Seeing Jasmine finally move with clarity instead of confusion reminded everyone that strength doesn't only show up in confrontations. Sometimes strength is quiet. Sometimes it's a single step forward after you've been standing still for too long. And that's why this episode stayed with so many people long after the credits rolled. It wasn't just drama. It was the slow unraveling of trust and the painful realization that once someone starts hiding pieces of their truth, even the smallest detail can change everything. If you want to explore more moments like this, where the smallest actions reveal the biggest truths, the next video goes even deeper into the patterns that brought them to this point and what it means for everything still ahead.